Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. This is optibotimus coming at you with another video review. And today we're going to be taking a look at the new Hot Toys MMS 343 of the 1/6 scale Superman from Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice. For the package, you can see you got a really nice kind of background here, which I'm guessing is Metropolis because you can kind of see Superman right there flying. Then here in the center, you got his Superman logo with the name going across, and then on the inside here, you got a couple images. You got one just of Superman staring at us, and then another of him surrounded by a bunch of people. And then that is actually fairly glossy. I mean, you can see the nice reflection on it. I really dig that. And then down here at the very bottom, you got the Batman versus Superman logo with, you know, the outer section being the Batman logo with the Superman logo on the inside. On the side here, you can see that the box is kind of staggered, giving it actually a pretty good kind of depth to the package. It's pretty nice. And then on the back, you got various warnings and contact information and things of that nature. And then it is, despite the fact that the box is actually kind of like in this wedge shape, it does lift off just like a shoebox. Then on the inside, you got another image of the figure within. You got the Superman name going across, and then you got the cast and crew responsible for making them. Then you just slide this out just like so, and you can see that you have the clamshell, which protects the figure, his accessories, everything like that. So for the packaging, it is pretty standard, but the overall look of it is pretty nice. But we're not here to take a look at the package, so let's get this guy out here and see how cool he actually is. Guys, so here we have Superman from Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice opened up and out of his packaging. And Hot Toys and their sculptors here have once again really impressed me. It seems time and time again that when they get a chance to go back and touch up on a figure, they really do improve it. Now for his accessories, coming down here for a little bit of a look at that, unfortunately, I kind of screwed up. There are two versions of this. You can get the regular retail version, which comes with everything that you see here, or there is the Sideshow exclusive version, which comes with a small light-up piece of kryptonite. Now, when I pre-ordered mine, I goofed up and I didn't order the one with the kryptonite. The price for this compared to that exclusive one is the exact same. So what I will say is that exclusive version is probably an overall better value because you do get more for the same price. But taking a look at what you generally get, in addition to the two close fists that you currently have on the figure, he also does come with two kind of grasping hands here that are just, standard. I mean, there's nothing spectacular. Real great paint variation, some nice sculpting in there with some vein work and stuff like that. But I mean, we've seen these hands time and time again. I wouldn't be surprised if they're reused from another figure. You do have a right and left relaxed hand. Again, that same level of detail is put in there. You just have a slightly different pose, where the arms, when they're straight down, you can have the hands kind of positioned in a relaxed sort of way. And then you also do get a right and left flight kind of hand. Again, same nice level of detail, but he's kind of got this positioning going on where he's flying through the air. And then you also do get the standard extra wrist pegs. But what's really nice about this is the display stand on here. This is basically a new accessory. As you can see, you have the dynamic flight pillar that you can move that around. You got the little seat clamp thing right here that allows you to put that around his waist. I do like how they have the little softer foam inserts around the inside here and then on the bottom. That's definitely something that is used previously, but is really nicely appreciated for this particular figure because of the way that the suit actually is. And you'll see that here a little bit more. But then for the display stand, you got the Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice text right up there with the Superman name there. And then you can see that you got this really cool image of Batman's logo with Superman's logo kind of merged in there. And then what's really neat, and this is basically new, is you can actually lift this up and give a little bit of a three-dimensional sort of display for the actual display stand. You can see some really cool kind of fiery detail on the inside there, which really looks nice. I mean, when you have a flat like that, you don't really see it all that much. I mean, you can kind of see it, and it's like the Superman logo is kind of burning through. But when you lift that up, you get it on an angle, you can see a little bit more of that kind of fiery stuff on the inside there. I really dig the way that looks. Again, this is a little bit bigger of a display stand. I do wish they would include the smaller ones, especially when they're going to be giving us these large ones. These look great for display, but a lot of us collectors don't have a lot of space for it. So it would be nice if they would include something like that. I mean, kind of like, we never use these extra wrist pegs, yet we always get them. I mean, it would be nice if they, threw us a bone and gave us that, just standard display stand. But coming to the figure himself, again, this guy looks incredible. The likeness on here is absolutely terrific. Now, the first one really wasn't all that bad. It was a little bit more specific to how he looked in that film, and of course, that was a couple years ago. Times changed, Henry Cavill gets a little bit thinner, a little bit more bulky, and this figure really does replicate that. A lot has been changed on this guy from the previous one that really does do a much better job of accurately capturing how he looks modern day. Now, first taking a look at his head sculpt, that portrait absolutely looks incredible. What I like that they did here was, in keeping a slightly neutral pose, they did give him some expression. I mean, you kind of can see the little, creases right above, his nose. I mean, the eye look. All of it just comes together and gives a very stern and determined look on him, which really does suit this character. The hair sculpt actually looks really good as well. He's got that very nice black color going on there. One thing that, and it's just the kind of look in general, is I really do miss the little curl of hair coming down. Something that like a whole lot of Superman characters and figures have always had, and it's one of those things that I feel is missing with this guy. I could really care less about the underwear on the outside of the pants, kind of look, but that little curly Q was kind of iconic for me. But you can see real great detail. I like what they did here with the Superman emblem as well, and I'll bring in the old one to kind of give you a comparison, but this one just looks a lot nicer. The suit also has a little bit darker of a texture. You can see that it does still have those weird kind of ripple things kind of going. I'll zoom it in here so that you can see that, get as close as I possibly can before it goes nuts. You can see that you got those little kind of chain link sort of looking bits right there. You come around here, I mean, it kind of even looks like he's got some like tribal stuff. I never noticed that kind of going through the upper part of his arm. I mean, that's kind of interesting. I never really zoomed in and got a real good look at that, but you can see it for sure. Then you got some really nice piping done here on the outside here. You can see kind of like where his belt would be. You got the little dot right there for it. You come down here, those pipings come all the way down his actual thigh and go around to the back of his knee. You got that up here on his gauntlets as well. And then you come around here to the back, real great cape on here. This has a very heavy duty feel to it, so it absolutely feels like it flows and drapes a lot better than the other one did. That's really interesting because it wasn't something that I disliked on the previous one, but was something that I noticed instantly when I got my hands on this one. There's a good deal of heft on here, and it just drapes very, very nicely. You come down here to his boots, very similar boot design that he has. They did change something on the inside here, which is a little bit unfortunate, which causes it to crease right here. I'm honestly not a big fan of that. Coming in to get a little bit of a closer look at that, you can see that what they basically have, and you can feel it right here, is there is a bit of a gap between the shin and the actual foot. Like the foot section here just pegs in on a ball joint, but you can see that it bunches up right there, and it actually then, when you flex it down, it looks okay, but when you push it up, it kind of tucks into where that crease is. So when you bring it up to get him to stand, you get this crease here. The other one didn't have that. Now you can kind of fix that a little bit by lifting and kind of pulling that fabric away, but it does bother me because you're constantly fidgeting with it. This side here doesn't get all as bad as this one does, but I do like the more seamless kind of look that the previous had. This just kind of feels like it gets a little bit bunched up, and that's because there's not a material underneath there that keeps that, kind of separated. On the previous one, underneath here, you could definitely feel there was like a piece of plastic that was underneath this that prevented the actual material from kind of sinking in there. Now, like I said, you can stretch this up, but it then kind of bunches things up here in the leg. So you do have to futz with it a little bit to kind of get it looking good. But you can see it does stay there, and it doesn't look as good as it could. That's probably the biggest downfall on the overall look for this figure. The rest on it is really very impressive. Now, for the comparison, here's the new guy, and here's the original. And one thing right up front that you're going to notice, other than the color, is that the size has been more accurately recreated with the new Batman vs. Superman version. One of the problems that I had with this guy was how tall he was. I mean, I think I remember showing him next to the Christopher Reeve Superman, and how that Christopher Reeve one was actually shorter than this guy, despite the fact that Christopher Reeve was actually taller than Henry Cavill. So That's one thing that always bothered me. I like that they actually lowered the size on this. You're also noticing a big difference in terms of the coloring. The lighter blue doesn't look bad, but I think the darker blue kind of fits the feel of the film a little bit more. And I'm definitely getting used to the darker sort of look. This was a lot darker than what I was used to, but I've gotten accustomed to it, and I think that this actually looks a little bit better. The other thing that I really like is, I don't want to say that they redesigned the actual Superman logo, but this piece right here around the middle actually looks a little bit thicker than the new one here. And one thing you're also noticing is the new one here features all this kind of black outline, which I really think helps the logo to pop. But when you're looking at it like around here, it just looks like the whole S itself has been shrunken down a little, and I think this one looks a little bit better. One thing I'm also noticing is the bottom section here, this gets a little bit more rounded, whereas this is a little bit more straight. So the overall look for this, I think, goes back to that more classic style Superman logo, which I do prefer. You can also see one of the biggest problems that the first figure had, that a lot of people complained about, was the way that the neck was in relation to where the logo is. I think this looks a lot better. And you're also seeing along the side here, you got that same kind of piping, but it has now been changed. You got a lighter blue, and it's not quite as busy. I mean, you can see that it's just these lines and such. Get this actually in the frame, compared to this one here, which it was the lines, but it was all black. I think that just stands out a lot better, and you can see that here in the light, that the actual blue kind of captures that light and reflects it a little bit, which makes it look really very nice. You can also see that the belt design has been changed a little bit. It's rounded here, whereas this one is now square. Then coming down, one thing I'm also noticing is that the new version has massive thighs. I mean, holy cow, this guy did not skip leg day at all. I mean, I don't know if that's kind of accurate to the film, but that really does look massive. And I don't know necessarily if that's what's contributing to the a height difference. I mean, because obviously you can see that these thighs are a little bit bigger, and then these are a little bit smaller and stockier. But I do think that the new versions looks better. And then when you come down to the boots, again, very similar design. The actual kind of chains on here do have a little bit darker of a tone. You can see some black kind of thrown in here, whereas this really doesn't have it. But you can also see, like I was talking about, you also don't have that bunching. Like I was saying, you can feel underneath here is a bit of a rubber piece. This whole section, I want to say that this is all separate or something, but you feel a bit of a section underneath here that when you move that, you can feel like the rubber or plastic around his ankle kind of flexing along with it, preventing, you know, that bunching from going underneath the actual joint. This one, you bend it and then you lift it up, and then you can see that it just gets bunched right there. So you do have to fidget with that some to kind of keep it looking fairly decent. You just slide that up and stuff like that. So I do think that the boots on the old one are better looking. But one thing, I mean, it just instantly stands out is that the cape here, I mean, you got it kind of flaring out like that, whereas the new one, just because of the heavier nature of it, just drapes so much nicer. Now again, that's not to say that this was bad or anything, but you can just really feel a difference in the thickness of the actual material. And really the only thing on the old one that I think is the superior to the new one is the way that they did the ankles. For his articulation, if you had the other one, you basically have the same level of articulation that one did. You have a neck kind of ball joint, so you can kind of get it pivoting side to side. You don't have anything here at the lower part of the neck. That's all one piece, unfortunately. But you can get this going up pretty high, so you get a decent range of motion here for the head for a flying pose or something. So you do have that full range of motion. The shoulders here move in and out. They do flex in and out on a bit of, well, no, actually, I thought they had the little armpit joint. And I think because of the size of his arms, you don't get that same range of motion there. So that's a little bit limited, unfortunately, but you can move it up and down. It can rotate very nicely, and you can actually see, one thing, this is actually really cool, like the striations. I don't know how well that's coming across, but as you move it, you can totally see like the striations of the muscles kind of moving underneath the suit. That's really kind of crazy and cool. So you do get a nice range of motion with it. The suit really does facilitate a lot of that articulation very nicely. He does rotate at the upper part of the bicep. He's got two joints here at the elbow, but really all you're going to get is about that. I mean, you can do like the guns, man. Look at the guns. That you could do something like that. So I mean, about a 90-degree rotation would be about here. It goes a little bit further than that with that that extra bend. Then you come down to the wrists. The wrists rotate, they move forward and back. I do really like how the actual gauntlets here are a part of the actual suit, whereas the other one, I didn't show this in the original one, the wrist guard here is actually a separate piece, which is kind of a pain in the butt. He does have an upper ab crunch. You can see his abs underneath his suit. You got a rotation right here. You do want to be careful because these piping pieces right here, if you go too far, I'd be worried about maybe ripping those. So just be careful as you're doing it, but you do have that also lower hip joint as well, so you get a little bit of rotation there and it can bend and everything. So lots of articulation in there. The actual thighs move forward, they move back, they move in and out fairly nicely. They rotate at the upper part of the thigh. He has two joints here at the knee, so you get a real nice deep range of motion there, and then straighten that all out. The ankles do also rotate, they move forward and back. They're on ball joints, so you can actually position those with a wider pose, something like that if you really wanted to. So all that articulation that you're used to is there in this new Superman figure. It all came out very nicely, and you can really recreate a lot of very nice poses with this guy. And I think when you get the Batman figure, people are going to have some real fun creating some dynamic fight scenes with him and that Batman. Like I said, it really does seem that Hot Toys and their sculptors, when they get a second chance to visit a figure, really go all out and do an outstanding job of kind of one-upping themselves. This version of Superman turned out great. Obviously, a lot of the changes that Hot Toys made were dictated by the way that the suit looks, and they did a great job of recreating that just by itself. But the biggest improvement to this, I really think, is the actual portrait. I think the sculpting on this just is terrific, and the likeness is absolutely spot on. Well, that first one was not a bad figure, and I absolutely still love it. You just get a more accurate and more updated representation of Henry Cavill as Superman with this. And for me as a collector, that's always what I want, the most accurate representation at the time. That means that when Justice League comes out and there's a new Superman, it'll probably be even better than this one. And again, I'll pick that one up as well. One thing that I will say about this community for 1/6 scale is that a lot of people do like the old looks on things. So like that old version of Superman, I should be able to sell fairly easily and get, some of my money back that I used to buy this. When the Justice League comes out, I'll do the exact same thing. So I'm not one of those collectors that feels that, Hot Toys is gouging us and constantly looking for money. I mean, obviously they're a business, so they're looking for money, but you have the option to either not buy the new figure or do like what I do. And if selling the previous figure to kind of fund buying the new one is something that you'd be interested in, there's a ton of Facebook pages that help that entire process out. But all that being said, this guy turned out terrific. The only thing that I really am not a big fan of is what they did here with the ankles. But the rest of the figure and all the improvements absolutely outweigh the one negative that I can find. So that being said, if this is a guy that you'd be interested in adding to your collection, he is available right now at Sideshow Collectibles. So all you have to do is click on the link down in the video description. You'll go to Sideshow where you can check out availability on this, as well as the rest of the Hot Toys and Sideshow 1/6 scale figures. But beyond that, guys, that's about it. So once again, I want to thank you for tuning in. This has been Optibotimus. Don't forget that if you like this video, to please like and share it. Also, be sure to subscribe in case you haven't already subscribed. That way you never miss a future review of mine. And as always, until next time, I'll talk to you later.